developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Hello, I'm Eric Gilmore, technical writer for the Google Drive SDK, and I'm here today with Ali Afshar, engineer for Google Drive. We're going to talk a little bit about downloads in Google Drive, aren't we, Ali?
Yeah, that's right. So, in my mind, downloads is one of the two major use cases of the Google Drive SDK. Google Drive SDK allows you to manage your files in Google Drive, manage your users' files. Now, you can get them in. Downloading allows you to get them out. And we have three different ways of downloading them, downloading files. And today we're going to go through, in a bit of an interactive way, using a Python shell to make some of these requests and have a look at some of the responses and see how to download files.
Viewers, you are in for a treat. Ali is going to weave some Python spells for us.
Yeah, something like that. So shall we get started straight away?
Why not?
Okay, cool. So first thing we're going to do is the most standard use case. A file is in Google Drive and we'd like to download it with the API. So this is without any user interaction. Now, I've got a Python shell open here. I'm not sure you can see it. It uses bpython, which is a bit nicer than Python. It gives you code completion and other things like that. I recommend you try it. It has a good history and that kind of thing. So one thing you haven't seen me do is I've created an auth module. And inside my auth module, I perform all the authorization that's required for this. So I've done that in the background. We're not going to deal with any auth today. So I just import that, and that HTTP is an instance which is already authorized. It's already got the correct credentials. And I'm going to create a drive service from this. So from API client, discovery, import build. And drive is going to be name of the API and the version number, and make sure we pass our instance. So I've created a drive instance. If you look at that, that's a discovery resource object, and that's gone away to discovery. Look that up and create this
Authorized drive service object as well.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, because we've passed in the authorized HTTP instance, and that's made it authorized. So all the future calls will have the correct token associated there. Right, so should we make a call to the API?
Let's do.
So drive.
Well, we're not going to make one call, though, are we?
Well, we'll make a few. We'll make a few. So first thing we're going to do is do a list of all the files. So drive.files.list.x. Quite a big request. It will do 100 by default. And in there, I'm going to get items attribute. Now, the items attribute contains as a list all the files that I've got. So there. And let's look at the first one. Let's get its title. So that's my document. Okay, that's a good one. We're going to use that one for our second example, actually. And let's look at the second file. And that's an image, so another good one. We're going to use that for our first example.
So for the first example, we're going to retrieve the download URL and perform a simple download. Is that right, Ali?
That's right. That's exactly right. So once we've got this thing, we need to look at the download URL inside our file. And you can see there, that's a reasonably long URL. It's important to know this is not a permanent URL. This will not last forever. So each time you want to use it, you should really get the metadata, find the download URL from the metadata, and then use it from there. How long does it last? I'd say a few hours, but to be safe, I would make the request, get the download URL, and then use it. So URL equals F2 download URL. Okay, and we've got this URL here. Now how do we get it? We have to make an authorized GET request. So as I've told you, the HTTP instance is already authorized. So I just need to pass that to HTTP request. And that returns a tuple of the response headers and the content. So we'll do that request. It's going away. It's downloaded. We can look at the headers here. Okay, it doesn't really tell you much. The status header is injected for you, so you see we've got a 200. You should have a file name in there. So our content disposition is there, so that tells you what the file name should be and what the various content types are. Now let's go ahead and have a look at, well, we can't actually look at the binary data of the file. Why? Because that would mess up this terminal. So let's look and see how long it is.
We have ways of viewing it there.
We have ways of viewing it. So it's 316K, 317K big. So we're not going to pipe that to a terminal. What we will do is open a file. Let's open it in binary write format, f.write c and f.close. Now, in a terminal, we have limited options, so we'll just jump out of that shell and have a look at the file. What do you think, Eric? Do you think that's going to work?
I would love to look at the file.
Okay, image to text, maybe image to text. Huh. Ah, that's right, image to text with no zero. My mistake. So we look at that, and there's the file. What does that look like to you, Eric?
That looks like what I see after drinking a bottle of wine.
Okay, well, let's go to Google Drive and let's have a look at what that file actually is. There you go, it's my neighbor's dog who's making a few appearances in these Hangouts, but there you go. So that's the image. I've shown you how to download it using the download URL, and then how to save it just by opening a file in binary format, writing to that file, and then you can look at it. It's on your local system. Okay, back to the shell. So that...
Can I say just in simplest terms, you've done two things. You've retrieved the download URL. You've used it to retrieve the file.
Exactly right.
To really boil it down to the high level.
Exactly.
That's what you did.
Can you think of any use cases for this? When would you use this?
When would you download a file?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. I think we have a number of Drive apps that are doing this currently, don't we?
Exactly right. But say, for example, you've got a sync client, or you just want to make a backup of your drive. That's the kind of time when you would use that.
To isolate this use case.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. Right, on to the next use case, and that will be exporting Google Docs files. Now, Google Docs files don't have binary content. Okay, that's kind of makes sense. We don't expose the binary formats. We don't expose the raw data. What you can do is download an export of the Google Doc into one of the formats that you can handle and that you can understand. Okay, so what we're going to use is a plain text document, a Google Doc document, and we're going to export it as plain text or text HTML, and we're going to have a look at that here. Okay, so slightly different procedure. The second part will be the same, actually downloading, but the first part, where do you get the URL? Well, inside, actually that's F1, inside the metadata for a Google Doc, you have a dictionary called export links, okay? And the keys of the dictionary are the MIME types, and the values of the dictionary are the URL where you can get the document for that MIME type. So let's have a look. Export links, dot keys. So you can see the various MIME types that we support there, text HTML, application PDF, etc. And if you look at the values, you'll see they are URLs almost similar to each other, with export format being different. Okay, so in theory you could generate these URLs. We advise that you don't do that because we make no guarantee that this format will remain constant like this. Okay, so we're going to use export links. What should we go for, Eric?
Did you want to go for plain text or HTML?
Let's go for HTML.
Okay. By the way, there's a table describing all the mapping of the formats in our downloads topic on the Drive SDK documentation. So if you don't like the way they're listed in Ali's screen, we have a prettier list for you.
Yeah, sorry about that. There is a nice list. One caveat, it's worth checking the actual metadata of each file to see what, because
True.
some files specifically can or can't download in different formats.
And again, you'll always have the very latest up-to-date information that way too.
Exactly. So there's the URL we're going to use, and again we're going to http://request the URL, and that returns a tuple, as always, of the response and the content. And we've done that quickly. Let's have a look at our response status. 200, fantastic. And the content, what do you reckon? Should we just dump that to the screen? We can this time because it's just a text format, HTML. And there you go, a big chunk of HTML. So as before, open index. We're going to save the file on the local machine, and we're going to have a look at it. Does that sound good?
Sure. Can you view it in the shell here?
We can try. I think we can find a text-based browser here. So open that, f.write c, and f.close. Okay, good. Let's jump out of the shell. Let's have a look. w3m index.html. And there you go. So that's my document. It says hello world. Just to convince the people who are not convinced easily. I'm one of you, by the way. I don't convince easily, but there's my document, and as you see, it's exported it as HTML. So that's the second way of doing this. It's the second type of download. And when might you want to use that, Eric?
When would I want to use an export URL?
Yeah.
Anytime when I'd like to have a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, some supported format in a different format that's more appropriate for my application.
Okay, brilliant. Or if you ever want to download it or save it offline or anything
for
like
saving
that.
offline.
Yeah.
Again. Yep.
So that is using the export links. Now, that's two of our methods down. First one, download URL for normal files. Second one, export links for Google Docs. And the third way we're going to show you how to download things is slightly different from the other two. Now, this provides you with a link, again, a URL that you can use, but instead of using it through the API with API authorization, this link can be given to a user, and the link uses the user's own cookie auth, if they're signed into Google, to authorize the file access. Okay, so they're authenticated and authorized differently, but this allows a user to download it in the browser. When might that be useful? Well, you want to allow a user to download one of their files. It's a huge video file, you know, it may be a few gigabytes big. You don't want to download that to your server and then send it to the user. You don't even want to stream that across. You just give them the right URL, and if they're logged in, they download that to their browser. They may be using one of the downloading utilities. So that all works there. So really useful, but slightly different. It's when you want to provide that option to the user.
Sure. And it's not correct to say that you can provide this to an unauthorized user?
So public files, a file that doesn't need authorization, then you can do that.
Right.
Okay, but that's, I guess that's one of the use cases, but not principally the use case here.
Right. Okay.
Okay. This is better for big files or files where you just don't even want to get involved in downloading it. The user just needs to be able to download that themselves. Okay. So let's have a look how we're going to use that. So again, we're going to use our image. Let's just check that it's the right one. Yep, 0.jpg. And in there, you will see that there's an attribute called the web content link. Okay, so that's just another attribute there, and if we set that to that,
web, if we were human beings talking or robots.
Right, you are back, Ali.
I'm back.
You're back.
Hi everyone, sorry about that brief interruption, but we're back. So I just showed you how to get the web content link out of a file's metadata, and now I'm going to show you how to use that. So just, there we go, as if we haven't put it on the screen enough times. There's the URL. And as I said, it's going to use my browser's own authorization. You can see that this browser, I'm already logged in. I'm already looking at the file, so it won't ask me to do any further. So I do that, and it pops up this download thing. And there we go. There's the picture of the dog. So in that case, I downloaded directly in my browser because I was authorized and I have access to view the file. Okay, so those are our three methods of downloading. And to recap them, do you want to recap them, Eric?
Sure. Their download URL, just to make sure I get this right, export links, and web content link.
That's exactly right. So download URL, downloading binary files in your browser, export links for downloading exported versions of Google Docs using the API, and web content link for downloading in the browser.
All right. Okay, it's pretty simple two-step dance. Retrieve the URL appropriately for your use case from those three that we just listed, and then get the content.
Perfect. Now we have additional kind of slightly advanced features in downloading. We support partial downloads if you want to split up the download into lots of chunks, or you want to do half now and half later, or you fail halfway through a download and you want to resume. We support these kind of features. That's all in our documentation. We advise you check that out.
A couple of questions about things that we support or don't. Ali, would you like to field a question?
Sure.
All right, because I'm not sure what this means, transloading. Let's talk about transloading. This individual wants a user to click on a button on a page hosted by user Y,
Right.
which copies a file from user Y's drive to user X's drive.
Okay.
And vice versa. Okay, maybe I do understand it. Do we support that?
Can you read the question in its full?
Sure. I want a user to click on a button on a page hosted by user Y, which
Right.
copies a file from user Y's drive to the X's drive, or user X's drive.
Okay, so currently, yes, we support that. It's just a copy operation at the end of the day. Your application can download the file and then re-upload it. Or you can copy the file, user Y can copy the file into their own drive and then share that file or make the owner for the other user, user Y.
Right. There'd be a requirement that both of those users would have to be authorized for your application.
Okay, so that could also be done two steps. So both users for that flow, but imagine the situation where user Y performs this authorization days or months even in advance of user X. So there would have to be some point where the user Y says, I want to share my documents. I want to share this so that it can be copied. So they will put that into that state. That's their part of the application. In the other part of the application, the receiver part, the user who wants to download that, later, they will need to be authorized there. Okay, or they could use the, for that specific case, you could use the web content link, because as long as the user has access, then you don't need to download that file in the API. So you can copy the file across and then they can download it.
Terrific, Ali.
So two steps, copy, then share.
One more question I'm not sure we can answer in the scope of today's talk, but can we get an example of cores for Drive?
Yeah, sure, we can. Actually, there are some. If you look on Stack Overflow, there have been a few examples there of how to do that. Cores works.
That's the most we can say about it.
Well, I mean, Cores is kind of down to the browser, works out the finer details. You make your HTTP, XHTTP request in the browser, and then the browser will try and see if the server has cores by sending a head. It asks the options, which ones it supports, and if it can, then it will make that request. So yes, we do support that, and yeah, please use it. And if you have problems, get back to us. There are some examples on Stack Overflow. If you can't find any, ask a new question, and one of us will paste some code for you. We'd be happy to.
That's an interesting question, though, about transloading. Maybe we need to have a session about sharing sometime soon.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And if any of you are still watching by now, if you like the idea of us doing a sharing session to complement our sharing docs, check that out. This video will be available in our download section for the docs.
All right. Well, I hope you've enjoyed Ali's incredible shell real-time demo. I believe he has the ability to copy it all into a paste bin for you.
So that's what I'm about to do now. It may or may not work. If it crashes, I'm sorry. So paste bin, yes. It may be too big. Oh, it worked.
Did you know you could do that? I didn't until this morning.
It worked. So there. We should add this URL to the to the video description so that you can look at it. But if you can see that, it's bpaste.net/show/49357, and it's got the entire session that we went through there.
I'll add that before we leave the room, Ali.
Okay, thank you, Eric.